We welcome you back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, and we welcome in Brian Costello. He covers the Jets for the New York Post and WFAN. Brian, thanks so much for being with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Brian, just from speaking to the team, what's the overall reaction and assessment of what went wrong in Week 1 against Buffalo?
Everything, pretty much. I mean, they pretty much acknowledged that nothing really went right. They felt better about the second half of the game, both offensively and defensively. But they know that they have to play a lot better than they did Sunday if they're going to have any success this season.
Brian, I think a big area of concern for a lot of Jets fans was the play of Sam Darnold in that game against Buffalo. He was inaccurate at times. He threw a bad interception. How concerned do you think Jets fans should be that it's year 3 with Sam Darnold and he doesn't seem to be showing a whole heck of a lot of progress, particularly under Adam Gase?
Yeah, I think this is who Sam Darnold is. I think everyone keeps, waiting for him to become something else. And, I just think we're waiting and waiting, and it might not happen. People want to blame Adam Gase. People want to blame the weapons, but there was a lot of things on Sunday that I thought were just Sam. Some of the throws were open receivers. He missed open receivers. The interception was a decision you expect from a rookie, throwing, rolling to your left, throwing to your right, throwing up basically a 50-50 ball to a 5'8" receiver. It was just a terrible idea. And then when he rolled out to his right and ran out of bounds rather than throwing it away and took a 5-yard sack, that was a terrible decision. Taking a delayed game penalty out of a TV timeout. There was just a lot of questionable decision-making things here, and I don't know. I was surprised, and I'm starting to wonder if this is just who Sam is, and he's never going to be what people thought he was going to be.
You mentioned that this could just be who he is. How long is it before you think the fan base questions whether this is the guy the team desperately wants him to be? Is there a benchmark, a barometer? Do you give him until the end of the year?
Here's how I usually look at these things. There's always a like a sort of a pecking order of blame with fans, right? So I remember when the Jets struggled initially under Rex Ryan. They go to the 2 championship games. Then 2011 they're 8-8. Well, it's Brian Schottenheimer's fault. So they fire Brian Schottenheimer. It's not Rex's fault. So then 2012 comes, and they trade for Tim Tebow, and they go 6-10. It's Mike Tannenbaum's fault. So they fire Mike Tannenbaum. And it's the fans and it's the ownership because they're following this along. So then, they bring in Idzik, they do that. Then at the end of 2014, it finally gets to Rex. But it's sort of like this pecking order. And right now, the fans are focused on Adam Gase. They hate Adam Gase. They want Adam Gase gone. I think as long as Adam Gase is here, Sam has a shield. Because I think the focus is going to be on him. That's what I've seen from the fan base. Whenever I criticize Sam, fans get mad. They blame Adam Gase. They blame the organization for not having enough weapons. And there's some merit to these things, but it's not completely. It just amazes me he escapes all blame. So I think as long as Adam Gase is here, fans are not going to be that harsh on Sam. I think it would be, if Adam gets fired and they bring in another coach and Sam plays the same under that coach, then maybe it'll finally get to Sam at some point.
Brian, you mentioned him, so let's get into it. Adam Gase was under a lot of fire for how the team played on Sunday, and there was a press conference this week where Christopher Johnson referred to Gase as a brilliant offensive mind. Now, since the last few years with Adam Gase, both in Miami, now with the Jets, his offenses have consistently ranked in the 20s. So what is it, do you think, that the Jets have seen in Adam Gase, whether it be on the practice field, in meetings or whatnot, that hasn't really been apparent in the results offensively?
That's a good way to ask the question. You're asking a better question than most people are. When you talk to Adam Gase and you talk offense with him, or you watch film with him, as Christopher Johnson surely does, or they have after action meetings, for lack of a better term, on Mondays where they go over what happened, where Christopher Johnson's there, Joe Douglas is there, Jaime Elhai, the team president's there. Adam, when he talks offense, he knows what he's talking about, and he's impressive, and he talks at a PhD level of offense that, for someone like a layman like me or a layman like Christopher Johnson, he sees stuff that we never even think of. So I think that's what Christopher Johnson's talking about when he says the brilliant offensive mind. He can't say that right now, though. Like he shouldn't have said it. It was a bad comment by him because people are just going to latch onto it and make fun of it. The results have not been there. You can't deny that. They haven't been there. So it's hard to say Adam Gase is brilliant right now when they had the worst offense in the NFL last year. And this year they got off to that start on Sunday. I will say, I think in Gase's defense, he doesn't have the greatest players to work with. And it cracks me up because Jets fans, like we just talked about the Darnold argument. Jets fans with Darnold are like, who is he throwing to? He's got no players around him. The weapons are terrible. Well, Adam Gase has those same weapons to work with. But I hear like he's got to get creative with his offense, which is my favorite thing. Like I would say, well, okay, what is he going to do? And they say, well, I should run screen passes. Oh, okay, that's creative. Like, he should throw the ball downfield. Well, no, like it's not that easy, And so he has not good players here. And then in terms of Miami, his first year he has Tannehill for most of the year. They go 10-6 and make the playoffs. Tannehill hurts his knee with like 2 games left in the season, I think. Then Tannehill tears the ACL going in training camp of the second year, and they bring in Jay Cutler off the street, which was Adam's guy. Like, he was his choice, but it's still coming off the street. And then 2018, I think they started 3-0, and then Tannehill hurts his shoulder. So he's had rough luck with injuries, and I think that's part of the offensive problems. And I don't think it's fair to completely dismiss, like, oh, he was in Denver, he had Peyton. Yeah, that's part of it. Having good players is part of it. Show me a good coordinator, and I'll show you good players usually. So to me, I think that's where Christopher Johnson is coming from. He sees it. That being said, now Adam Gase has to live up to that. Like, he's got to start looking like a genius or whatever, brilliant. He's got to start looking like that because he hasn't so far. And I think he's been dealt a bad hand in terms of the players on his team, but that's the hand he's been dealt, and he's got to make something of it.
You shared an interesting piece from Steve Serby. Adam Gase is lucky that Christopher Johnson is the anti-boss. And Christopher Johnson, from his comments with the no playoff mandate again, and just a lot of the recent thread, seems to be more on the passive side as an owner. But how shocking was it to hear him regret move like not hiring Joe Douglas sooner?
Yeah, I was shocked he said it. I mean, I know that they felt that way, but Christopher was very careful in May of last year when they fired Mike Maccagnan not to say anything degrading Mike Maccagnan. He really was kind of elusive, evasive rather, on what the reason was why Mike Maccagnan was fired. And then for him to come out and say, yeah, he feels like he's in better hands with Joe Douglas was, that's pretty tough on Mike Maccagnan. So I was surprised he said that. I think it was an honest moment. Obviously he likes the guys he has right now. He likes this leadership group. We'll see. Joe Douglas has a lot to live up to too. They're putting a lot of pressure on him. We'll see if he can do it.
Brian, you bring up Joe Douglas and getting past whatever Christopher Johnson says publicly about his coach or his GM. How would you feel about the direction of the franchise going forward with Joe Douglas at the helm? He had what I thought was a really good draft back in April. How good do you think Jets fans should feel about a guy like Joe Douglas heading up the front office going forward, that he can build a really solid roster?
I think they should feel good about him. I mean, I think he has a plan. He has a great reputation around the league for being able to evaluate talent. That being said, it's not easy. Like the best, like there's no one in this league that drafts well year after year after year after year. If you look at them, they all have bad drafts. Belichick has drafted a lot of bad players. Seattle's drafted bad players. Baltimore's drafted bad players. Like everyone has misses. So it's not that easy. And, if you look at the Eagles drafts when Joe was there, they're not working out that well for the Eagles right now. I think if you talk to Eagles fans, they would be skeptical about Joe Douglas. So that being said, I think he has a plan. I think it's smart. I think he's trying to fix the cap like he did that this year. I think he wants to do things like he's not going to spend money unless it's someone who he really feels is worth it, and then he's going to invest that money. But he's not going to just go, okay, we have a hole at cornerback. This is the number one cornerback in free agency right now. I'm going to go give him $15 million. Like, that's kind of been the way they've done business here, and it doesn't work because there's guys who hit free agency usually hit it for a reason. There's a reason the Rams didn't pay Tremaine Johnson, right? And then the Jets were like, oh, well, he's the best cornerback available. We'll sign him. And it didn't work. So I think Joe isn't going to do that. I think he's going to pounce when he sees opportunity. And if someone sneaks into free agency, like I thought, they overpaid Mosley and it hasn't worked out. And that was a McCagnon decision. But I understand where McCagnon was coming from on that one. Mosley was shocking that he had free agency. So that's the kind of player, if a guy like that hits free agency, I could see Joe pouncing on it. But for terms of drafting, we'll see. I mean, yeah, on paper, they had a good draft. Everybody thinks they had a good draft on paper. So we'll see how it pans out. I think Becton played well in his first game. A lot of these other guys are dealing with injuries, so you got to see how it works out.
Brian, looking at this weekend with the 49ers, without LeVeon Bell and the 49ers not with the best run defense, how did the Jets get through this weekend?
I don't think the Bell loss is that big because Bell has not played well here. And I think it kind of takes some of the pressure off Adam Gase. I think he feels tremendous pressure to give the ball to Le'Veon Bell when he doesn't really want to. And now he's going to ride his guy. 37-year-old Frank Gore is going to get a lot of carries. I think they're hopeful that LaMichael Pirine can play. And if he does, that'll be interesting. He had some really explosive plays in training camp. I think he gives them a dimension that they haven't had in a while, that like the really explosive running back. I think they're going to have to ride the running backs because this pass rush is so good from San Francisco. So I think they need to establish some kind of running game on Sunday. And then also the 49ers are banged up in the secondary, cornerback, so maybe Darnold can get something going there.
Brian, my last one for you is about the Jets' injuries, because it's not just Le'Veon Bell. They've got injuries at receiver. They've got injuries kind of across the board.
Yeah.
How much of that do you attribute to just bad luck, or how much do you think this had to do with a weird offseason, no preseason games, not a lot of ramp-up, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it has to do with that. I mean, you see it across the league, and it's, hamstrings, groins, calves. It's soft tissue injuries, as they call them, which I think guys just haven't had that same ramp-up period to get their bodies ready to play. The Jets offensive line coach used the term in August that I liked. He said it's like building calluses on your hands. When you work outside and you get those calluses on your hands, and then it doesn't hurt anymore when you lift and stuff. But these players didn't have that time to build calluses yet. And so I think you're seeing a lot of it. But look, the Jets had terrible luck last year with injuries. So we'll see if this continues. The thing I'll say is they haven't lost anyone, I don't think yet, for a long period of time. It feels like a lot of these guys will be back at some point right now. So that's the positive end of it.
That's Brian Costello. You can read him in the New York Post and catch him on WFAN covering the Jets. Brian, appreciate a few minutes today.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.